Hey everyone, how is it going? I hope you're doing well. I'm doing well because today we're talking about music, and today we're doing our first ranking of the discography. We're going to be doing the discography of Brit rock band Radiohead. Radiohead are probably one of the first bands I ever kind of fell in love with, decided to make my band. Obviously, I've been a fan of lots of different kinds of music for a long time. But, in high school, Radiohead were the band where it was kind of something struck a chord with me. And I was like, okay, this is my band. This is it. I was introduced to them during one album. I'll get to that album specifically. Going on a road trip, my brother lent me a big stack of CDs. One of those CDs was one we'll talk about. I think there was some Beck in there. There's some Sonic Youth, but as this CD in particular is like, oh, there's something on here. And then I think they were releasing an album a year later, and then that album kind of became one of my favorites as well. And it just kind of kept that train rolling. So we're going to get into the discography. This is a tough list because outside of my first choice, these are all albums I return to again and again. And so part of it is which one, I mean, it's my list, so which one is subjectively better, but also which one I kind of ask myself, would I prefer to listen to? Which one would I rather listen to? And which one do I find myself listening to more and more? And that's sort of how I framed this. So let's start again with kind of my least favorite, and that will be, no surprise for a lot of folks, Pablo Honey, their debut. Now, their debut, it doesn't really sound like anything else. It kind of sounds like the follow-up to Ben's, but this comes out in 92. Um, and it's just sort of Brit rock, sort of grunge inspired. It's got their big hit Creep, which I don't know if I've ever really liked that song superly on this album. I think the tracks You are really good, Stop Whispering, and Anyone Can Play Guitar. Those are my favorites on here. Ripcord and Vegetable Prove Yourself's pretty fun. Blowout is a really good closer as well. It's a good album for what it is, but it's not like they continue on the sound and push it to where it could have gone next and where we could have gotten, a good like modern alt rock band from Radiohead. So it just kind of stands out as a bit of an anomaly and one that they don't really pursue very much. And that could be why it's kind of low down on the list for a lot of people. Now, from here on out, these are all great albums. That's the thing. Even my next one, it's kind of the second lowest on my list, but it's still my one of my favorite albums. And this is actually the album that I was introduced to the band from. And that is The Bends. This is their direct follow-up. Planet Telex, fantastic opener. Just look at that track listing. Like every track on here is great. The Bends, High and Dry, Fake Plastic Trees, Bulletproof, Black Star, Street Spirit. That's another great closer. One thing I've noticed going through this list, Radiohead, they know how to begin an album, they know how to end an album for the most part. A few exceptions, but generally speaking, openers are all great. Planet Telex is one of my favorites. And the reason why I have this album so low on the list, this is the one that made me fall in love with the band. It's just not one I return to now and then. I'll take my favorite tracks like that one, I think Plastic Trees. I'll usually put Street Spirit as well. Put those on a playlist I have. I'm never really reaching to listen to the Bends as a full experience as much as their later albums. Again, fantastic album. It sort of carries on a little bit of what we got on that debut, but pushes it in a little more of an artsy direction, which is pretty cool. Next up is King of Limbs. This is sort of their follow-up to In Rainbows during, I don't know if you want to call it their krautrock period. And if I'm being honest with you, I actually really like this album. I'll do both of these together because they kind of go together. So I got King of Limbs, and then I was going to follow up with In Rainbows. There are days of the week, ask me on a different day of the week, I might put King of Limbs above In Rainbows, depending on the mood I'm in. They're both very similar. They go really well together. King of Limbs is maybe a little more out there, a little more experimental, a little more ambient. Bloom as an opener, I'm not wild about. I think that kind of drags this album down for me. I think if we reorganized, resequenced the track listing on here, I might for sure have this ahead of In Rainbows. Bloom, not one of my favorites. However, then you get, Morning Mr. Magpie, I really like. Lotus Flower is probably one of my favorite Radiohead songs as well. And Separator and Codex, those are great too. Generally speaking, so let's go, okay, so we'll go King of Limbs, and then we go to In Rainbows. I think In Rainbows, with tracks like Body Snatcher, you know, Weird Fishes, Reckoner is a really good one. Um, House of Cards is a really great track too. I think in general, I feel like King of Limbs is a bit more consistent of an album, whereas in Rainbows has kind of higher highs. Uh, I think it was tough, but I made the choice. So we're gonna go King of Limbs. It's consistent, but we don't quite get as many bangers. And then we're going In Rainbows, which is really cool too. I remember when this came out, they were really promoting it as like a pay what you want model. I remember going to whatever the website was, signing up for forget how much I said I would pay for it. And I thought that was really novel and cool at the time. Now we got Bandcamp, we got streaming, we got all kinds of stuff. That was really cool. Now we're in the what top five. So from here on out, where we're trucking along. I'm gonna go with Amnesiac next. That's me. Um, show off the back case as well. I really like the artwork for Amnesiac. It's really cool. In fact, I have this little art book that I found online, and it's just sort of was from the album Kid A period as well, as they were kind of recorded around the same time. Pretty cool book. Any hoodle. Yeah, Amnesiac, it's a really fun album. Recorded at the same time as Kid A. A lot of people might think of it as like, oh, the tracks that weren't good enough for Kid A. You know, with Kid Amnesiac, we see the full track listing. I don't know if that's true. It would have been cool to see like a resequencing with Kid Amnesiac if that was the intention, to see how they could have made it flow differently. But for me, this is much more of a colder and more what's the word? Not paranoid, cynical. I'd say Amnesiac is a bit more of a cynical album than Kid A, but you got weird tracks on here. You open up with like Packed Like Sardines in a Crushed Tin Box. You have tracks like Pull Polk Revolving Doors. You've got weird stuff like Hunting Bear. Like there's a lot of weird kind of ambient experiments on here. But then you also have beautiful ballads like Pyramid Song, You and Whose Army. I might be wrong, one of my favorites. Morning Bell, the Amnesiac version. I think I prefer the other one more, but it's pretty good too. Dollars and Cents, not wild about. Same with Life in a Glass House. I know a lot of people really, really like that song. I kind of like it. It's not for me. And like Spinning Plates, I think I prefer the live version of like Spinning Plates, but it's a really cool idea of a song that, you know, recorded one way, played the other way. It's a novel idea. It's a very Radiohead kind of thing. Next up, we're going with Hail to the Thief. Now, I mentioned earlier, the Bends is kind of my first exposure to the band. That's where I fell in love. And Hail to the Thief came out, what, 2003, I think? 2003 was kind of the first album they released when I was into them, when I decided to be a fan. And even still, it's one I really like. I really like the artwork. I like the art direction on it. This one, it's very oppressive. It's a very oppressive sounding album. It's very stark. And when you're using that to describe Radiohead, you know you're in for that. But there's some great tracks on here. 2 plus 2 is 5. Sit Down, Stand Up. Kind of redundant thematically. They both sort of have like a slow build, a rise, and a big climax, but both really good openers to the album. I really like Backdrifts and Go to Sleep. There, and The Gloaming are really great too. Some tracks not quite as sold on, you know, Wolf at the Door is kind of weird. Punch Up at a Wedding, I get it. It's there. They're fun. But even I Will, that's a really great heart-wrenching ballad. Great album. I think sort of the forgotten child in the Radiohead catalog, but I really, really like it. All right, top 3. Now, my bottom 2, I'd say, are pretty static. Those don't really change. Middle albums, as I talked about, there's a lot of back and forth. Depending on the day of the week, that might change. Even Amnesiac and Hail to the Thief might kind of switch now and then. But with the bottom 2, my top 3 don't really change. These are the ones I go to more frequently than the others. These are the ones I'd rather listen to more than the others. So number 3 for me is Kid A. Now, for a lot of folks with Radiohead, this is where they jumped off. For some people, this is where they jumped on. For some, they kind of stayed the course. But if there was one of their albums that looks like their cover art, this is one of them. It's stark, it's angular. but it's sort of hauntingly beautiful as well. And I think why I like this album so much, whereas on Amnesiac, you're getting a lot of experimentation, you're getting a pretty full album. Here, you're only getting 10 tracks, and I feel like they're all on here because they needed to be on here. Everything in its right place, great opener again. Kid A, National Anthem, How to Disappear Completely, Tree Fingers, even that's an ambient experimentation. That feels like part of the album on here. Optimistic, In Limbo, Idiotech, Morning Bell. And then we end with Motion Picture Soundtrack. Some of these other ones, when I've been going through, I'm kind of, saying like, oh, that one's okay, don't care as much for this. This one, every track on here needs to be on here. It's a great album. Number 3 for me, I love it. Next up, we're going with maybe their most popular album, their biggest album, OK Computer, released in 1997. It's got the brilliant Paranoid Android on here, but it's also got some amazing tracks. Airbag, I really like. Subterranean Homesick Alien, for me, is one of my favorites. I think it's kind of one of the, it's not a deep cut because this is one of the most popular albums ever. It's not really allowed to have a deep cut when it's that popular, but for me, Subterranean Homesick Alien is a highlight on here. Same with Electioneering, I really like. Climbing Up the Walls, I'm not as wild about. No Surprises, Lucky, and The Tourist. I think The Tourist as well is really, really nice way. This is kind of Radiohead dealing with their newfound celebrity and that feelings of paranoia and isolation that were already sort of present on the Bends. They come full front here, and The Tourist is as nice a way as Radiohead can put us back into some sort of gentle state of mind. Really great album, number 2. Which means number 1 for me, this could be the last Radiohead album we get. I don't think it is. They haven't officially kind of said they're calling it quits. And for years now, the band have done solo works. Even now they do solo works. And now we're getting the smile of a new album coming out, which I'm pretty okay with. Their last album, if I was comparing it to the Radiohead catalog, I'd kind of put it in, the upper middle, maybe 4th or 5th in here. But that's not what they're going for. I think that's why I was sort of disappointed when I first heard it. I was expecting it to be Radiohead. It's not. And we got a new album coming out. So this could be the last we hear from the band, potentially. And it's their 2017 album, A Moon-Shaped Pool. There's the artwork there. Radiohead have always had fantastic artwork, even back to Pablo Honey. But even starting at the Bends, going forward, we get beautiful artwork. I just feel like A Moon-Shaped Pool is their best work because it's really a summation of all of the other work they do. You get that weird krautrocky stuff that you hear at the forefront within Rainbows and Pink Limbs. You get sort of that more experimental rock from like OK Computer and Hail to the Thief. You get sort of that electronic influence in production that you got on Kid A and Amnesiac. You're just getting all of it here. And again, great opener, Burn the Witch. Daydreaming, Deck's Dark. Full Stop, one of my favorites on the album, I really like. For me though, so it begins really strongly with kind of Daydreaming and Burn the Witch. Then we end super strong, number 10, Tinker Tailor Soldier Sailor, Rich Man, Poor Man, Bigger Man. Thief is a great song. It feels similar to the song they did or they put forward for the James Bond soundtrack. And then you close with True Love Waits, which is an album. Again, that's one of the reasons why I thought this could be their final album, because True Love Waits is a track they've been doing live. Let me grab, where's it right here? There's a great live version of it on I Might Be Wrong Live Recordings. Also have that on vinyl. Have a review as well. And it's a band or a track they've been sort of reorganizing, redoing, rejigging for years now. And you get a great version on here. I think I prefer that live version more. But if they did something like that version on this, it wouldn't have fit. It thematically and musically would have been really awkward and kind of clunky. So they redid it to kind of make more sense for the style they're going for in this album. But there you have it. That's my take on the Radiohead discography. So let's go through really, really quickly again. Let's start with Pablo Honey. It's okay. Then we go to the Bends. Great alt rock. If you're not sure, if you want something a little more straight ahead, try the Bends. I might actually say OK Computer's a better choice, but try the Bends for some great stuff on here. I'm gonna put these two together, King Limbs and Rainbow. Usually I'll go for In Rainbows, but more and more I'm finding myself going with King of Limbs. Here's that art book, so we don't need to put that there. Here's Amnesiac. I like that one a lot, but some of the tracks on here seem kind of like you're putting this on. It could have been a B-side. Hail to the Thief. Again, for me, I feel like this is the forgotten child in their catalog. And then their top three albums, Kid A, OK Computer, and Moonshaped Pool. Any of these you can't go wrong with. Fantastic discography. And like I said, Radiohead, one of those first bands I fell in love with. And now I want to hear your thoughts because musically it's so varied. People have weird, or not even weird, just differently organized lists. I've seen people say King of Limbs is their absolute favorite Radiohead. And I get it. I mean, they're wrong, but I get it. And that's cool. So I want to know what's your take? What's your thing? And yeah, I'll catch you next time. Bye.